your entertainment kind of comes
Yeah, and that was
lurking in.
yeah. So that's like as we talked about, it was always kind of smoldering in the background. Is something I wanted to do in conjunction with with what I do in medical devices, and yeah, and part of that was it's always kind of smoldering, and as I mentioned, there was kind of a propensity for R&D or kind of the innovation efforts to be very conservative and traditional. Just kind of thinking, how can we improve on X instead of here's the problem, how can we solve it? Coming at it from a clean slate. And so I had this idea that if I could intermingle, some very conservative R&D folks with filmmakers, because in filmmaking, if you the kind of the mantra is if you can dream it, you can do it.
Right.
And I think it's a Walt Disney thing from way back when. And so that mindset of anything's possible, I thought if I could mix in a little bit of that. And so when I started the Silicon Prairie Center, I had the opportunity to get involved in filmmaking, partially through a local filmmaker here, and I thought that's the perfect mix, because they're going to be just thinking all these crazy ideas. While I have these people that are on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, thinking of everything that could go wrong and not what could go right. And you mix those two together, and hopefully you get something coming out of the box thinking. And so, interestingly, it took a little bit of a different turn than I expected. So
something happened in the
yeah,
world?
so that was kind of my plan, and then we were gearing up to film our first movie on May 4th of 2020. It was supposed to start. It was going to be a SAG production, basically like a union film. And then something happened around February, March of 2020, and the world just kind of took a different course. And so we were weeks away really from filming, that movie.
You had already done the casting?
Yeah, we'd already done a lot of the casting in Los Angeles in February of 2020. I think it was supposed to be March 20th and 21st. We were supposed to do casting, here in Nebraska and Fremont. And around that same time, Fremont was one of the first places to really get hit with COVID. And so, the union, basically SAG, said everything kind of had to shut down. And so we were scratching our heads and thinking about how can we move this forward and when will we be able to move it forward. We had actors and crew and everybody was all excited about making a movie. And so in the process of this, we got an idea for another film. Phil Gorn, who I do these films with, had an idea about a couple that falls in love by talking through their shared wall during COVID. And so we started cranking on that script in I think late March, early April, and we were shooting a different movie called My Corona by May of 2020. So we did a pivot, and we did the unprecedented, I mean not unprecedented, but the very unusual thing of basically getting ready to shoot a movie that you hadn't even finished the script for and improvising on the script as you went. And one of the aspects that we were struggling with is how could we do the social distancing and feel like how, in a time when people weren't supposed to drive in California, how was Phil going to get, and you didn't certainly want to fly, get from California to Nebraska? And in the midst of doing all these Zoom meetings, one day I had the crazy idea of maybe we could direct this movie remotely, using video conference technology. And so I rang up Phil and he's like, Kirk, I appreciate your out of the box thinking, and he paused. Let me think about it. And, he calls me back and says, yeah, we both thought about it. Thought, we can probably do this. So this concept of having films influence technology actually ended up being the reverse. So we had, the technology and the utilization of technology and kind of the typical kind of, technology oriented thinking ended up kind of infusing itself into filmmaking. And we did what's still believed to be the first feature film to be directed 100% remotely. The director never came to Nebraska, never met any of the cast in person, and did everything from his office in California. And so, that's been an interesting journey, and I think it's, part of the entrepreneur journey is you got to stay nimble and be willing to pivot, and see opportunity when it's right there in front of you.
Right. Well, that's all awesome, and now that's almost to now present day.
Yeah, I mean, it pretty much is. I mean, we made the movie. You can see behind me. were blessed to win a lot of awards for the movie, and we had the foresight when we made the movie to shoot footage for the documentary, and that's actually gone on to win a lot of best documentary awards at film festivals around the world.
Nice.
Talking about how we directed it remotely and how we filmed it on a closed set where everybody stayed here while we were filming and didn't leave until we wrapped. So it's been an adventure, and I think COVID, for a lot of folks has been, and it obviously is a challenging time. But I think for a lot of folks, we tried to find a way to persevere through it and to find a way to keep doing what we're doing and keep innovating. And I think our greatest advancements in progressive neuro happened after COVID hit, because I feel like people weren't thinking about soccer practice or softball or church activities or whatever. They were really focused. They in fact, I think a lot of people wanted to focus on something so that they didn't go crazy from having to be home all the time.
Right.
And we had some creative ideas come out of
and
that.
And COVID, as terrible as it is for some, other people, there's a saying that kind of was floating around out there, and I was like, it's not true. And that was, we're all in the same boat. Well, we're not.
We all handle it differently.
Yeah, and it's by nobody's fault or intentional or unintentional. It's, if you were a fast food worker and your company says you're closed, that's going to greatly affect you. But if you're somebody that has a business like myself where there's no physical location and we're just mailing things, you can still operate. And additionally, all these people were sent home. I didn't know that this was going to happen, and I was actually kind of boarding up my windows, preparing for a storm, a big hurricane to come, thinking, man, I'm going to shut down this website because it's not that essential, and I'm going to shut down this phone number because it's not a big deal, and kind of minimize the expenses. And everybody went home, stayed home, and started shopping online. And our sales went through the roof. And so I hadn't really experienced any bad things because of a shutdown. It actually benefited my company. And then I had to sit and watch other companies like really struggle, and that was a hard thing to do. And so we weren't all in the same boat. It affected everybody differently.
And even people who were in the same boat or under similar circumstances, a
Right.
lot of them reacted differently, and the outcome
Exactly.
was different,
And so, but it also goes back to my, talking about failure and like learning the lesson is like, as bad as it was, shutting down economy and all this stuff, there was things that we learned. We found a way.
Yep.
And these roads that once were connected have been disconnected. We found a way to build around it. And so that's just an amazing thing in itself. And like, it takes a certain type of person to be like, this is bad. It's not good. But I'm not going to lay down and die.
Yeah.
And so that's I guess the entrepreneur spirit.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, like, we could have given up and just said, okay, well, we can't shoot this, or we're just not going to shoot a movie. And we're just like, no, I wouldn't want to give up. Like, I got to find a way. It's that very make a move mindset of let's make a move. Let's make things happen.
Hey, Riley here. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Make a Move podcast. For more content, check us out on all major social media platforms and makeamovepodcast.com. Until next time, get off your butt.